The plan has been compromised. They know everything!
The sound of silverware clinking against porcelain echoed across the crowded dining room, but Amara barely noticed. Her focus was fixed on the two men at the corner table, voices low, their conversation a quiet hum beneath the clatter of plates and glasses. One of them, a towering figure in a designer suit, was Jasper Devereaux, the billionaire CEO everyone in Manhattan had heard of, but few had ever seen up close. His reputation was as sharp as the knife he twirled between his fingers. A man who played the game of power with ruthless precision. Amara, wiping a glass clean at the bar, felt the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. The tips from tonight's shift wouldn't cover her bills. Again. She shifted her focus back to the men, wondering how it must feel to be him, commanding rooms, dictating terms. Her life seemed a million miles from that world. She overheard a name, a mention of a new venture Jasper was launching. She knew the story, of course, everyone did, but hearing him speak it so casually, like it was just another move on a board, stirred something in her. A feeling she couldn't quite name. As she carried a tray of drinks to the next table, her phone buzzed in her pocket, the screen lighting up with a message from her best friend. "Tasha, so how was your date with Jasper Devereaux? You never told me he was that cute." Amara stared at the text, the corners of her mouth twitching in a nervous smile. She hadn't actually met Jasper. She hadn't even seen him in person before tonight. But who would know that? The lie had come so easily. A quick retort over the phone that turned into something more. "Oh, we just ran into each other at a coffee shop this morning. He's been in town for meetings." And just like that, she'd constructed a new reality, one that seemed to shimmer with possibility. "Yeah, he's pretty amazing," she had replied, even though she knew nothing about him. Nothing except the rumors. Her pulse quickened. She needed to respond, to play along, to create the life she wanted, not the one she was stuck in. So she did. "He's coming by the restaurant tonight. You should totally come by." Amara had expected Tasha to laugh it off. Instead, Tasha was intrigued. The next thing Amara knew, she was stepping into a role she hadn't planned on. Jasper Devereaux, my boyfriend? It felt like a joke until it didn't. That night, just as her mind reeled with guilt, the door swung open. Jasper walked in, his tailored suit cutting through the dim lighting like a shadow. The room fell quiet for a second, and Amara's breath caught in her throat. His sharp eyes scanned the room, never settling until they found her. Her heart pounded as she stepped forward, adrenaline thrumming in her veins. She had no plan, no idea how to keep this lie going, but when he smiled and approached, her instincts took over. "This is my boyfriend." "Jasper," she said with a practiced ease, though her voice felt foreign to her own ears. Jasper extended a hand, his grip firm but not too tight. He gave her a smile, calm, almost detached, like he knew exactly what was going on. He was playing a game, but Amara wasn't sure of the rules. Later that evening, as she cleared his table, Jasper leaned in. His voice a low murmur meant only for her, you know. "Amara, I've been watching you," he said, his words carrying an unsettling weight. "You're good at pretending, but don't forget, pretending can be dangerous." Amara froze, the chill in his words seeping through her bones. He knew. The lie, the mask she had created. It was all unraveling with a whisper. Her breath caught in her throat. And in that moment, Amara realized the truth she hadn't wanted to face. This was no longer a harmless story. It was a dangerous game, and now Jasper had pulled her into it. The restaurant hummed with the usual rhythm of clinking silverware and low conversations, but for Amara the sound was muffled, distant. She couldn't shake the memory of last night. Jasper's whisper still echoed in her mind, his words clinging to her like the heavy scent of polished leather. Pretending can be dangerous. The lie she had woven so carelessly now felt like a trap, tightening around her with every passing hour. Her shift had started like any other, serving drinks, taking orders, faking smiles, but everything felt different now. She moved with a strange heaviness, every step weighed down by the invisible thread of her deception. The door swung open. Amara looked up, and there he was again, Jasper Devereaux. His presence seemed to suck the air out of the room, drawing the attention of everyone around him. This time, though, he wasn't just passing through. He looked for her, his eyes sweeping the room until they landed on her, pinning her in place. Amara's breath hitched. The moment felt like a scene in a film, where everything slows and the tension is so thick it feels like you can touch it. He wasn't here by accident. He had come for her. He smiled, but it was different from last night. There was no performance now, no act for the room. It was like he was seeing her, really seeing her. His gaze lingered too long, and there was an intensity in it that made her skin prickle. He didn't walk up with the same confidence, the same detachment he had the night before. This time his every movement seemed deliberate, calculated. "Amara," he said, his voice low, almost familiar. "How's your day been?" The question was casual, but the way he asked it made her uncomfortable. He already knew everything, didn't he? Knew she wasn't who she claimed to be. "Good," she replied, forcing a smile that felt too wide, too fake. "Just the usual." Jasper didn't move, and the space between them seemed to shrink, pressing in on her. He studied her with a quiet intensity, his eyes flicking to her apron, the worn shoes she had polished that morning. He noticed everything. Amara wondered if he could see through her. If he could tell she was still wearing the lie she had stitched together the night before. "You know," he said, stepping closer, "I've been wondering something." His voice lowered even further. His words now just for her. "How does someone like you end up here?" Amara's chest tightened. The question wasn't rude, but it was too personal, too probing. She hesitated, but only for a moment. She was a professional after all, and a question like that didn't deserve a real answer. "People end up in all kinds of places," she said with a shrug, trying to keep her tone light, her face neutral. "I'm here because it works for me." Jasper's lips twitched into a small smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. There was something calculating behind it, something that made Amara's stomach twist. "You're smart, I can tell," he continued, his voice smooth, measured. "You could be doing more. You could be anywhere." He paused, letting the words linger in the air between them like a challenge. Amara forced herself to breathe, to not let him see how unnerved she was. She glanced down, avoiding his gaze, her mind racing. Was this just idle conversation? Or was he trying to get under her skin? Trying to make her question everything? Before she could gather her thoughts, Jasper leaned in slightly, his tone shifting to something almost conspiratorial. "I don't like pretending." "Amara," he whispered, his words so soft, so controlled, that they almost seemed like a warning. "But I think you might be very good at it." His words hit her like a blow. She stared at him, her pulse quickening. How much did he know? How much had he seen through her carefully crafted lie? Jasper straightened, the cold, calculating mask slipping back into place. He smiled again, but it was the smile of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. He had her cornered, and she had no idea how to fight back. He left just as quickly as he came, disappearing into the night with the same quiet power that had drawn her in the first time. Amara stood frozen, her thoughts a blur. Jasper had dropped a subtle hint, an offhand comment that carried a weight she couldn't ignore. He was aware, he had known from the start, and now the game was no longer just about survival. It was about control, and for the first time, Amara realized that she wasn't the one holding the cards. The lie had taken root, and it was going to cost her. The lie had started as a whisper, but now it filled every corner of Amara's life like static she couldn't turn off. Each night, Jasper returned to the restaurant, taking the same corner seat near the window, his presence as commanding as the city lights that bled across his face. He never announced himself, never called ahead. He simply appeared, like a shadow that had learned her schedule. And every time he came, the room seemed to shift. Waiters spoke softer, managers smiled wider, and Amara's friends watched her with new eyes. To them, she was no longer just Amara the waitress. She was Amara, the girlfriend of Jasper Devereaux. At first, she let herself enjoy it. When her co-workers whispered in awe, she didn't correct them. When Tasha teased her about dating up, she laughed. The attention felt like sunlight after a long winter. She had spent years being invisible, serving the powerful, clearing their tables, fading into the background. But now, when Jasper walked in and nodded toward her, she was seen. Still, the warmth came with a price. Sometimes, Jasper's eyes lingered on her too long, like he was trying to decode something she hadn't said. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight, short, precise, deliberate. It was as if he knew silence was its own kind of control. "People believe what they want to," he said one night, sipping his wine without looking up. "The truth's too heavy for most." The sentence lodged in her chest. That night, after he left, Amara found herself alone in the break room, staring at her reflection in the steel fridge. The fluorescent light above her flickered, buzzing like a restless thought. Who was she becoming? A woman who built comfort out of fiction? Or one too afraid to live without it? She remembered her mother's voice. "Don't let the world decide your worth. Earn it." But her mother had worked herself sick and still struggled to pay rent. Amara had chosen a different kind of survival, the kind that required masks. When Jasper appeared again the next evening, she served him without speaking, yet their silence felt louder than words. Every motion, the pour of water, the set of the napkin, the brush of her sleeve near his hand, felt rehearsed, almost ritualistic. He studied her, calm as ever. Then softly, "You wear your lies well." Her hand froze mid-pour. The words were casual, but the meaning hit deep. She looked up, trying to read his expression, but his face gave nothing away. "Excuse me," she managed. Jasper leaned back, eyes half-shadowed by the dim light. "You don't need to explain. I just admire conviction. It's rare. Conviction." The word stung. For a moment she wanted to tell him everything. The rent overdue, the nights of doubt, the ache of pretending. But pride sealed her lips. He wanted a performance? Fine, she'd give him one, so she smiled, smooth and practiced. "You should know. You're good at pretending, too." He chuckled quietly, almost approvingly. "Then maybe we understand each other." That night, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her tiny apartment. Outside, sirens wailed, distant but insistent. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends who now wanted to know more about her billionaire boyfriend. Each one made her chest tighten. She had wanted to be seen. Now she was trapped under the gaze. As dawn crept through the blinds, Amara realized what scared her most. It wasn't the lie being exposed. It was the thought that Jasper might believe it, might actually be playing along for reasons she couldn't yet see. Was he toying with her? Testing her? Or was this something far more dangerous? Two liars finding comfort in each other's silence. She didn't know, but one truth lingered, sharp as glass. In a world built on power, silence had a cost, and Amara was already paying it. The invitation arrived folded in cream cardstock, heavy, elegant, and impossible to ignore. Amara turned it over in her hands as if it might disappear. Across the top, printed in gold, were the words, "The Devereux Foundation Annual Gala." Her name appeared below Jasper's, as though the lie had been carved into the paper itself. She hadn't agreed to attend. She hadn't even been asked. Yet there it was. Amara Collins and guest of honor Jasper Devereux. When she looked up from the envelope, Jasper was already watching her. He didn't smile, but his silence carried something almost daring. "You'll come," he said simply, and walked away. At the restaurant, the lie had begun to breathe on its own. The staff whispered now, not with admiration, but suspicion. Jasper's constant visits, his quiet conversations with Amara at the corner table, the way he sometimes brushed his fingers along the rim of his glass while staring at her. It had become a story everyone wanted to solve. "Girl," Tasha whispered during a slow hour. "You sure you're not in trouble? That man's energy, it's strange." Amara forced a laugh, light but brittle. "He's just private." Private was a safer word than powerful, safer than dangerous. But as the gala approached, even she felt the unease. The lie had grown larger than her, a performance that no longer belonged to her alone. She was playing a part in Jasper's world now, and she didn't understand the script. The night of the gala, the city seemed to glow in anticipation. Limousines lined the marble entrance of the Grand Astoria Hotel, flashes from cameras lighting the street like bursts of lightning. Amara stepped out of Jasper's car, the borrowed gown hugging her shoulders. The fabric shimmered under the chandeliers, but her hands trembled at her sides. Jasper offered his arm without a word. His calmness only made her more aware of her own fear. Inside, the ballroom was a cathedral of wealth. Polished crystal, laughter that didn't sound real, conversations that buzzed like static. Every surface gleamed, every smile looked practiced. Jasper fit perfectly among them. Amara did not. but when his hand touched the small of her back, her nerves steadied. For a moment she felt invincible, like she could stand beside him and belong. His confidence became armor, his silence a strange kind of shelter, until she caught the eyes. 3 women near the champagne tower, 2 men near the marble stairs. Their gazes lingered too long, their smiles too measured. She realized then that in this world, curiosity was sharper than cruelty. They didn't believe she belonged. "Lovely to meet you," one woman said, voice sweet as glass. "How did you and Jasper meet again?" Amara's throat tightened. She reached for the story she had practiced in her head, but before she could speak, Jasper answered smoothly. "Fate has a sense of humor," he said, and the group laughed. His tone carried finality. No one pressed further. Still, the question clung to her like smoke. Hours later, Amara found herself on the balcony, the night air cutting through her nerves. She leaned on the railing, watching the city below. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, a stranger in silk. Behind her, voices murmured through the open door, Jasper's voice among them. Calm, assured. "She believes she's playing her own game," he said. Amara froze. Another man laughed softly. "And you're letting her?" "She's useful," Jasper replied. "People reveal more around someone who doesn't belong." The words sliced through her like ice. Useful. Her breath hitched, but she didn't move. "She's sharp." "Though," Jasper continued almost admiringly, "that's what makes her dangerous." "Lies built on need always are." The conversation drifted, but Amara heard enough. She stepped back into the ballroom, the sound of violins swelling around her. Jasper stood across the room, glass in hand. His expression unreadable. He lifted his eyes and smiled. For the first time, Amara couldn't tell if the smile meant "I see you" or "I own you." Either way, the truth was clear now. The web she had spun was no longer hers to control. The first thing to crack was not the lie, but the silence. Amara waited in a side lounge, a narrow room of mirrors that turned one person into many. The carpet ate sound. A single lamp drew a harsh circle of light on the table. Her phone lay face down like a small shield. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Jasper entered without hurry. No entourage, no smile. He closed the door. The latch clicked like a gavel. For a moment they just watched each other, 2 actors who knew their lines and hated them. "Why me?" she asked. "Why keep this going?" He studied the mirror instead of her. "Because truth bores people," he said. "A clean lie opens doors." Then he turned, eyes steady. "And because you walked through one, you knew. From the first night." His tone was calm, almost tired. "Your friend's surprise. Your manager's stare. The way you said my name as if testing it for size. I know theater when I see it. You should have stopped me." "I should have," he said, softer now. "But I didn't. I'm guilty of enjoying the experiment." Experiment. He sat, elbows on knees, hands clasped as if holding something fragile. "I built a life where people bring me the version of themselves they think I'll buy. It's efficient. It's empty. Your lie was new because it carried hunger. Real hunger is rare in these rooms." He glanced toward the mirrors. "It makes them honest." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "I've been honest? That's your angle?" "You were honest about wanting to be seen," he said. "So am I." The word struck something locked inside her. She thought of her mother counting tips at the kitchen table, the light flickering, the bills stacking like trays. She thought of last night's balcony, of the word he'd used, useful. "So I'm a tool," she said. The taste in her mouth turned to metal. "You kept the lie alive because it helped you." "Yes," Jasper said. He didn't flinch. "It helped me measure the room. Men who want favors talk more when they think I'm distracted by love. People who resent power show their tells when they believe it has chosen a girl like you." Around us, masks slipped. I learned what I wanted to know. "And me?" He exhaled slowly. "You made it costly." His hands opened as if letting something go. "I haven't slept. I keep hearing your laugh and asking why it mattered. I keep watching you set a napkin as if it's a promise. It shouldn't matter." "It does," the lamp hummed. His vulnerability was strange, controlled, almost cautious. It disarmed her and it made her furious. "You hurt me," she said. "You turned my worst choice into your test. You watched me drown and took notes." "I took notes on myself," he said. "I wanted to know if I can still feel anything that isn't bought." He met her eyes. With you I could. The mirrors threw their faces back at them. A dozen versions of a man and a woman with nowhere left to hide. The distance between them was both a step and a gulf. What do you want now? She asked. Choice, he said. Yours and mine. Anger met pity inside her. She hated that they could exist together. The lie had done more than lift her. It had tied their emptiness together like two ends of the same cord. If I tell the truth, she said, I lose the job, the little safety I have. I lose the only time I haven't felt invisible. But if I stay in the lie, I lose myself. Jasper stood. The mirrors caught his movement, shards of the same man. He reached into his jacket, then stopped, leaving whatever it was untouched. You think I want to punish you, he said. I don't. I want to see what you do when the path is clean. What path? He stepped closer, a respectful distance still between them. His voice lowered, surgical and calm. We keep going, publicly. I open doors for you, school, projects, anything you want. In return, you wear the story until it becomes the truth people prefer. Or, he paused, letting the word hang. You step to that door and tell them everything. You keep your name. You pay the price. The lamp flickered once, as if the room itself had to choose. Jasper's final words were cold as glass and hot as risk. He offered the future like a contract. Continue the lie and take everything you ever wanted, he said. Or tell the truth and accept what comes. The truth had a sound, quiet, heavy, like the pause before a storm. Amara sat at her kitchen table, the city humming faintly beyond her window. Bills and papers lay scattered before her, and in the middle sat a business card. Evelyn Shaw, Corporate Counsel. The ink looked too sharp against the worn surface. Every choice she'd made, every lie she'd built had led her here. Her phone buzzed again. Tasha. She didn't answer. Once Tasha's messages were her lifeline, jokes, advice, warmth. Now they were reminders of the gap the lie had carved between them. Her friends had stopped asking about Jasper with admiration. Now they asked with suspicion. Is it real? Are you okay? Amara had laughed, pretending not to hear the tremor in her own voice. But it wasn't funny anymore. The meeting with the lawyer was in a glass tower that smelled of polish and calculation. Evelyn Shaw greeted her with a handshake that was too firm, too rehearsed. Mr. Devereaux mentioned you might need protection, Evelyn said. Amara frowned. Protection from what? The lawyer's expression didn't change. From being used, or from being left exposed. The words cut deep. Exposed. That was what she feared most. Not losing Jasper, not even losing her job, but being seen for what she really was. A woman who had lied her way into someone else's story. Evelyn flipped through her files. He's powerful, she continued. But his empire isn't clean. Partners fight. Investors circle. If he falls, anyone tied to him will be pulled in. You're tied to him. The sentence landed like a verdict. When Amara left the building, the city felt different. Too bright, too loud. The truth wasn't just about Jasper anymore. It was about her place in a game she didn't understand. That night, Jasper arrived at the restaurant again. He always came when she least expected it, as if he could sense the moments she began to waver. This time, he didn't sit. He asked her to walk with him. They moved through the city's quiet edges, where the neon softened and the air smelled faintly of rain. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Amara said, You're hiding something. He smiled without looking at her. Everyone is. I met your lawyer, she continued. She said you're surrounded by enemies. Is that why you're doing this? Using me as a distraction? Jasper stopped walking. His eyes caught the streetlight, cold, unreadable. You think too small, he said. This isn't about enemies. It's about control. Every truth costs something. I just decide who pays. Amara stared at him, a mix of anger and disbelief rising in her chest. And me, what do I owe? He turned, finally meeting her gaze. You already paid, he said. With your lie, the words burned. He wasn't wrong. She had built this house of glass with her own hands, and now he was the only one who could decide when to throw the first stone. They reached a quiet street corner. The sound of traffic faded. Amara looked at the darkened windows above them, wondering how many lives were built on lies like theirs, shining from the outside, hollow within. I can't keep doing this, she said quietly. I don't know who I am anymore. Jasper stepped closer. Then let me help you remember. He took her hand, and for a moment the air stilled. His touch was neither tender nor cruel. It was a question. Tell the truth, he said softly, and you lose everything they've started to believe about you. Keep the lie, and I make sure you never have to struggle again. You choose. Amara pulled her hand back, her heart beat loud in her ears. That's not a choice. That's a trap. He smiled faintly. All choices are? They stood in silence, the space between them filled with what neither could say. Then Jasper leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. You think you invented pretending, Amara? I've been pretending my whole life. The money, the power, it's a mask. You just reminded me I was wearing it. Amara froze. His confession struck her harder than any threat. For the first time, she saw him not as a monster or savior, but as something far more dangerous. A mirror. Both of them had built their survival on illusions. Both of them were terrified to let go. The streetlight flickered above them, casting their shadows side by side on the concrete, blurred, almost indistinguishable. In that moment, Amara understood. She wasn't trapped in Jasper's world. She had helped build it, and now the walls were closing in on them both. The headlines came first, cold, efficient, and merciless. Waitress or heiress, the mystery woman beside Jasper Devereaux. Devereaux's scandal deepens as insider reveals fabricated romance. By the end of the week, Amara's name was everywhere. Her photo, smiling beside Jasper at the gala, had been cropped, filtered, and dissected across 1,000 screens. The lie that once made her powerful had turned her into a spectacle. In her small apartment, the blinds stayed closed. The television murmured in the background, replaying fragments of her own undoing. Every segment used the same words: deception, manipulation, ambition. They made it sound like ambition was a crime, like wanting more was a sin. Her phone lit up with messages, some cruel, some pitying. She deleted them all. Even Tasha's number remained unanswered. Meanwhile, Jasper's empire trembled. Stocks fell. Partners withdrew. A government inquiry opened into his company's ethics. Cameras followed his every move. Yet he appeared calm, the same measured man who could turn silence into control. To the public, he was untouchable. To Amara, he was unraveling. When she finally saw him again, it was in his penthouse overlooking the city. The place felt colder now, too large, too polished, as if even the walls were tired of pretending. Jasper stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching the skyline like a man studying the wreckage of something he built. You shouldn't have come, he said without turning. I had to, Amara replied. You used me. Now everyone thinks I used you. He faced her then, and for the first time she saw exhaustion in his eyes. Not defeat, but the kind of fatigue that comes from living inside a mask too long. Maybe we both used each other, he said. You wanted power. I wanted distraction. The world gave us both punishment. Amara stepped closer. Don't twist this into philosophy, Jasper. People are losing jobs because of this. My name's ruined. I can't go back to the restaurant. I can't go anywhere. He smiled faintly, though there was no triumph in it. That's what truth does. Burns the furniture first. The line hit her like a strike. She stared at him, anger mixing with something she didn't want to name, pity. That night they sat across from each other in silence. The city below flickered with lights, each one a reminder of someone else's story. Jasper poured 2 glasses of water. You could still win, he said quietly. Play the victim. Tell them I manipulated you. They'll believe you. You'll get sympathy, opportunities. The lie can live again, just in a different shape. Amara shook her head. You still think everything's a transaction. Everything is, he said, calm but hollow. Even regret. Her hand tightened around the glass. You don't understand. I didn't do this for money or fame. She stopped. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. For a moment, his expression softened. The mask slipped. Then you already paid the price, Jasper said. The hours blurred. The conversation shifted from accusation to confession. Jasper spoke of his father, a man who taught him that power meant never being vulnerable. He spoke of women who had smiled for cameras and left him colder than before. And when he looked at Amara, he said something she didn't expect. "You were the first person who lied without profit. That's why I stayed." The room went quiet. The city's noise faded until all that remained was the ticking of the clock. Amara stared at the man who had both destroyed and defined her. She realized then that his world, his empire of glass, was collapsing not from scandal but from the absence of truth. And she had become his mirror. At dawn, she stood by the door, ready to leave. Jasper's voice stopped her. "Amara," he said. "Whatever you do next, make sure it's yours." She turned. "What does that mean?" He approached, stopping just close enough for her to hear the whisper that ended everything. "My real name isn't Jasper Devereaux," he said. "It never was." The words froze her. He smiled faintly, almost gently. "You see? We're the same. Both of us learned to survive by pretending." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Then she stepped back, her pulse steadying. "Maybe we are," she said. "But only one of us still has time to stop." Amara left without another word. Behind her, the city began to wake, the first light spilling through clouds like a quiet truth finally breaking through. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it was hers. The morning light arrived like an unwelcome truth, soft, unrelenting, impossible to hide from. Amara stood before the mirror in her apartment, the same cracked one she had owned since college. For the first time in months, she saw herself clearly. No expensive gown, no borrowed confidence. Just a woman stripped of illusion, trembling between shame and freedom. Today, she would speak. The press conference had not been Jasper's idea. It was hers. A single podium, a room of cameras, one final stage to tell the truth. Not the rehearsed one, not the polished version, but the one that hurt. The room was already full when she arrived. Reporters leaned forward, pens ready. The air buzzed with the smell of coffee and curiosity. She could feel eyes following her as she walked to the podium, each step heavier than the last. Behind her, Jasper stood in the shadows of the stage. He looked smaller now, his suit perfect, but his presence dimmed. The empire he had built on silence and charm was collapsing, and he knew it. When Amara faced the crowd, her voice trembled at first. "My name is Amara Collins," she began. And I lied. A ripple of noise swept through the room, but she didn't stop. I pretended to be someone I wasn't. I told a story that wasn't true. I wanted power because I was tired of feeling invisible. But the truth— Her voice broke, then steadied. "The truth doesn't disappear when we bury it. It waits." She paused, eyes scanning the crowd. Some faces looked judgmental, others almost sympathetic. But Amara no longer needed their approval. "I can't undo the damage," she continued, "but I can stop running from it. I can tell you that Jasper Devereaux never made me lie. I made that choice, and now I'm choosing something harder— honesty." The room fell silent behind her. Jasper's gaze was fixed, unreadable. For once, he wasn't orchestrating the narrative. He was part of it, no control, no pretense. Just a man facing the same truth he had taught her to fear. Later, outside the building, the city was awash in gray light. Cameras flashed as she stepped onto the sidewalk, but Amara didn't flinch. Reporters shouted questions, yet she kept walking. Each step felt like shedding a layer of the lie that had once felt like armor. She turned a corner and found Jasper waiting by a car. The same driver, the same silence. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did," she replied. "You built a world where lies made people powerful. I don't want that world anymore." Jasper studied her for a long time, his expression unreadable. "The truth destroys things, Amara. Sometimes the things we love." She met his gaze. Then maybe they weren't worth keeping. For the first time, he looked away. His voice softened. "You think this ends with a speech?" "They'll still come for you." "Maybe," she said. "But at least they'll come for the real me." The air between them hung heavy. Two people bound by a shared wound, yet walking in opposite directions. Jasper opened the car door but didn't get in. "You reminded me of something I forgot," he said quietly. "Once before all this, I thought truth could save me too." Amara turned, the wind catching her hair. "Maybe it still can." As Jasper's car disappeared into the traffic, she stood alone on the sidewalk. The noise of the city surrounded her, honking, chatter, sirens. But for the first time, it didn't overwhelm her. It felt alive, real. She took a deep breath, letting the air fill her lungs. The future was uncertain. Her reputation might never recover, But the mirror she had avoided for so long no longer frightened her. She had faced the reflection and found someone worth saving. Amara walked toward the subway entrance, the noise fading behind her. Somewhere inside, a quiet peace began to take shape. Not the peace of victory, but of truth reclaimed, because she finally understood. The truth doesn't set you free all at once. It breaks you first, then rebuilds you into someone who can stand in the light without fear. And for Amara Collins, that was enough. The city looked different in daylight, cleaner, quieter, almost forgiving. Amara crossed the small park near her new apartment, her coffee steaming in the cold morning air. A few months had passed since everything had come undone, but the world hadn't ended. It had simply kept turning, waiting for her to decide what came next. She now worked at a community center on the Lower East Side, helping young women learn job skills and financial literacy. The pay wasn't much, but it felt real. Every face she met, every story she heard reminded her of who she used to be, hungry and visible, desperate to be seen. Only now, she didn't need the spotlight to prove her worth. Inside the building, sunlight filtered through tall windows, landing on rows of mismatched chairs. Amara placed her bag down and began preparing for the morning session. The quiet rhythm of her new life soothed her. The smell of paper, the faint hum of the old heater, the laughter of the girls who arrived early. "Miss Amara," one of them said, holding up a resume. "Can you check this for me?" She smiled. Of course. Her tone was calm, but something deeper stirred inside her. A sense of purpose, unglamorous but true. She had traded power for peace, and though the scars of her past still lingered, they no longer defined her. Later that day, as she left the center, she found a letter waiting in her mailbox. The envelope was plain, the handwriting precise. She didn't need to open it to know who it was from. Jasper. For a long moment, she just held it. Then with a quiet breath, she tore it open. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "I hope you're well. I read what you've been doing. The world needs more truth-tellers, even the ones who had to learn it the hard way. I've stepped down. The company will survive, but I won't be running it. Maybe that's my version of honesty. Be well, Jay." She folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her coat pocket. There was no anger left in her, only understanding. They had both been shaped by their lies, and both had finally let them go. That evening, Amara walked home through streets glowing with early sunset. The air was cold, the sky streaked with gold. She passed a storefront window and caught her reflection. For a moment, she paused, not to fix her hair, not to question herself, but simply to look. The woman staring back was steady, grounded, real. At the corner, street musician began to play, his song low and soulful. Amara stopped to listen. Around her, life moved on, children running past, couples hurrying home, the city pulsing with noise and motion. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was standing outside of it. She was part of it. No mask, no story, no borrowed name. She took one last sip of her coffee, now cold, and smiled. The future was uncertain, yes. But it was hers now, unwritten, unedited, and finally true. Moral reflection. Amara understood that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about walking forward with it, knowing that truth, however imperfect, is the only ground that never collapses beneath you.